Greetings, this is Classic Games Redefined. My name's Rich. What I want to do here is this is something I've been kicking around that I wanted to do, and I want to discuss this. It relates to my genres, relates to a lot of stuff going on, and I think if you understand what's going on in here, and this is just one model, about why people play different games. Why you'll see variants. There's different motivations on why people play. My background in coming up with this model here was that I was actually asked to read a white paper on gamification. I never got to it. The company was more technical, and I realized its leadership. Along the way, I realized it was pretty much it had to do with engagement. So I did a lot of personal research, looking into the area of engagement, motivation, and all that. And there were 4 types of motivations we have here. And this is a model I call enduring engagement. That was the model type. But what we're looking at here is this is slightly modified from my other model for the engagement. And we're looking to apply this to games and why motivation. What you see here is you see 2 sectors. You see it's a 2-dimensional axis. You have on top, you have progression. And then you have expression and identity. Progression has to do with an outside sense or internal sense of change. Expression and identity has to do with personal expression of that. And you have an internal focus and external focus. And you look at what is the driving factor for why something happens. And what would be the motivation there. And you have 4 of these here. On the right, you have the social and purpose, which is external focus. And those, there was a debate amongst people who did looking at motivation. There was one, I believe DC, there's a model which had 3 types, which had mastery and autonomy, and then had connectedness. So he didn't have purpose. Other people have done purpose, such as logos therapy, etc. And I just break them off too, because it focuses a little bit different. Anyhow, there's more details on this here, but I really want to focus on pretty much a game aspect of why somebody's a player and why they like to engage in interactive activities. And you have different areas. Let's look at the first one in the upper right hand corner, for example, the purpose one that you have here. Purpose is in the realm of adventure, story. I'm going to give you some content or genre type stuff. You'll see this here, or terms associated with it. With purpose, adventure, story, context, narrative, experience. A lot of what you see in area AAA and what people think of video games today would typically is heavily in this area. The Order 1886, I've got it right, I hope. The Order 1886, for example, fits right into here, heavily driven. And we'll go through these different categories here, and we'll see how they contrast. The reason why they're in different sectors, the upper right and lower left, is that if you focus on one, you can undermine the other one. So you have that here. So you'll see writing, actors, the experience, something outside yourself that challenges you and causes you to react. And by doing it when it's done in a logical manner and can tell a story that makes sense, you get engaged. And you do it. And there's a lot of people think of gamers today that actually this is a major drive. They want to do an adventure, want to go off and do a story. There might be other motivations, and you'll see that here. Now, as we go around the circle here, the square, as we're going to go around counterclockwise, because we're going to get to mastery next. As we go across, you'll see that one or more categories can be together, and you'll see a genre. I'll get to mastery in a second. I'll explain in a minute about the sense of progress or where that fits. But like a role-playing game, why don't I have it here? Excuse me. What you have with the mastery and what's involved there in a role-playing game, the sense of progress on a personal level and development does this. So, a lot of story writing and what we have here fits under purpose. The adventure is very much purpose-driven, and that's the reason why somebody is doing a game. They'll wonder why a story misses an ending and feels like it's shorter, because you don't get completion. Another sense of progression you can have, let's switch over to mastery right now. I'll give you some of the buzzwords which I list here. You have skills. Again, mastery, I repeated it again. But mastering something. Achievement, leaderboards, puzzles, sports, challenge. Gamification, which has to do with a lot of leaderboard stuff that's in there. It's a feedback mechanism, giving people feedback in winning. There was, under the Bartles type, they was described as a killer as a category. And you would fit that under here. If you're doing puzzle-related things where you want to challenge and overcoming challenge, it fits in here. You develop a sense of progression, not by an external environment, but what happens within yourself, for example. You get more skills. A role-playing game, which, as I think I might have mentioned a short time ago here, but anyhow, if you combine a purpose of an adventure with this sense of progression, of personal development, developing character, you get a role-playing experience. Yes, role-playing is classically a character, but typically has stat building. So that definitely fits here. So you'll have that, and you'll have a story driven like that, story-driven progress. Sports and competition fits into here. What I would say here is the purpose is what you'd be a typical A side of what you see of video games, what people think of games now. And theme and all that and everything else fits into it. Mastery, on the other hand, is what would be defined as a classic game. Human competition, a skill where you challenge somebody else. Puzzles don't quite fit into that. But you'll find that area. Mastery appeals to that. The fact is, you offer me a challenge and I overcome it and I demonstrate myself. The fact I get a score, an achievement, a badge, or something else along the lines like that. When I get that, it's a measure of my accomplishment and I could show it to others. Positioning and winning, working up in a hierarchy works that way. So you have that there. That's another one. Third category we want to look at here, we're going to go to the lower left-hand corner, would be autonomy. And what would you have in autonomy is you have building, sandbox, expression, creation, freedom. Minecraft, not the Grand Theft Auto side, not those type of what we call sandbox games now. Those are typically fit under the adventure or the purpose side. But the autonomy side, what you have here with the building and sandbox, something like Minecraft, Terraria, a Little Big Planet could fit there. Anything that allows you as an autonomy to do things here. You can see an element while you have purpose in doing it in a Western RPG in a dynamic world. I mean, 4X titles could fit in here. If you're exploring and doing everything else, and it's up to you, and you express who you are as a person. I mean, you can do something else, autonomy and mastery, where you're developing skills and you form a character and all that. But the autonomy really focuses, it's on personal expression. That's why if you look at the bottom, the expression and identity, for example. You see that there. And the fact I can build and create, and if you look at what's a lot involved in Minecraft is people creating and being innovative in designing. A game that will offer an open-ended approach and be able to get very clever and do it. Pen and paper RPGs, for example, besides having the purpose and adventure, provide that a way, and if it allows somebody to respond, you get a freedom in the way to act. But there are challenges involved, particularly in the video game side. Look, for example, at what you see with story-driven games like The Order 1886. With that game there, The Order. Very linear, everything else. People are complaining that there's not enough, you don't have a lot to say. The story's driving you because of the narrative. And if you get caught up in it, works fine, but for somebody who's driven by autonomy and wanting to have personal expression and doing this here and have freedom, that's why freedom's one of the attributes. A very linear game, and that's why the Western RPG games that you have like this in the open world and sandbox will definitely lead into it with the structure, purpose, and story. But you contrast that with a JRPG, Japanese RPG, which is very strict and linear and story-driven. There's a conflict. So you have that there. That's another one of the drives. You can think of other games like that there for a creative type where you have this thing here. And that's another thing that's interesting that you'll see when people discuss Minecraft or like No Man's Sky up now, for example. People are saying, but it doesn't have a story. It doesn't have this here. And somebody comes back, Minecraft. Again, you can, if you do a very purpose-driven with the story, you'll have a conflict with providing a person freedom. And one of the drawbacks of something that's autonomy, somebody's purpose-driven, is you go and you don't know what the heck you're doing. You feel lost because you don't have a context, you don't know what to do and operate in. So you have a problem here. And there's a trade-off that way. Now, we went to mastery. Let's look at the social element and what's involved with it. You'll see that there's potential conflict and work together. But anyhow, with the social aspect here, friendship, having human contact, having respect of other people, party game type stuff, social networking, teams, and feeling of belonging. Again, it's on the external focus because that's with connecting with others. Purpose can kind of be connecting with an environment, particularly in the context of games, while social has to be connecting with others. And typically a feeling of belonging, there's an identity perspective as opposed to this here. Now, this you can see here is that aspect of the social part can work at odds against mastery, the upper left-hand corner. That's why it's there. I mean, the thing is, you and mastery, competitive. Think competitive in regards to that. And that's why I said sports. A social aspect can be very competitive. It can undermine the friendship and the connection side and working together in camaraderie. So that social aspect, it ends up being a challenge. But if you have certain people with respecting also, and also autonomy, kind of a little bit separate here. But there's ways, as long as it's like an identity-related issue. I mean, you'll see groups like Anonymous, 4chan. You would develop an identity with certain people's values. People can do that in a group. And somebody, if they sync with it, they can show loyalty to a group and harmonizing that way. But the social aspect can, in the mastery, work against each other, particularly if the drive is to be better. Mastery, you have a contrast, a skill of being contrast, of differentiating yourself from somebody else, as opposed to, that's the mastery side. The social side is the commonality in working together in teams. I mean, you think of the famous Leroy Jenkins, where he goes off charging on his own and does this thing, and he's not coordinating with the team and not coordinating. You have teams and teamwork fit on a social thing because you feel like you're belonging part of something. It can work against the mastery side of that too. Where you see social and purpose linking together is, think of MMOs, massive multiplayer online games. With that whole adventure world where you form a team and do that, definitely fits into it that way. So you have these four factors, and what you have here is from the typical side, is the purpose side is the AAA industry, the adventure side. Mastery is our classic definition of video games, what we had. The leaderboard, think old school arcade game, puzzle games, challenging, board game stuff it is. And autonomy, what you had when the sandbox, when computer went simulation, is you had an idea of the express and create. And if you combine it with mastery, you can do a 4X type title, mastering an environment. Minecraft has a degree of mastery involved with that, as you'll learn a skill, and crafting would fit into that. And you have that autonomy. And then you go to the social side and autonomy, which ends up being, actually think of pretty much collaborative art and everything else, where somebody contributes something to it. And you add to it level creation, and crowdsourcing would fit into that. Your motivation there is to have personal expression, but also want to connect with other people. And because of the nature of these elements, they can conflict, particularly the ones on the corner. They don't need to, but you need to be very aware of that. So, anyhow, I do appreciate you watching this. This is an experiment. Again, I'm adding slides here. I'm going to get better. This is just something I wanted to get up. So anyhow, I'm speaking off the cuff. I'm just looking at some notes here and speaking my experiences on it. Feel free to give me feedback on this and your experience if you see there's something that doesn't fit into this as drives. I just feel this is important because what you see here with the whole gamer controversy and everything else is that people have different definitions of what they think a game is, and they think it has to have something or doesn't have something, and not understanding that people have different motivations and play different things, and different type of game genres have a different focus. So, anyhow, that's about it. We'll be doing some other stuff here. Just wanted to get this out, and I'm just speaking the audio tonight. A few other nights we'll try to put the video and get this done, sync it, and try to get it up sometime, hopefully this week. So if you're seeing it, that's about it. There's more I can go into this, and it might be beneficial to have a discussion below on it, but okay. That's it, and I do want to thank you for watching, and may your die always roll 5.